my name is Harshita and I'm a chef. I'm 27 years old. I'm based out of Chennai, Tamil Nadu, and I'm just using this platform. I got introduced to Kamakshi through a common friend. I'm just using this platform to learn more about eating disorders and share my experience as well. So yeah.
Thank you for that. So, like, when did you first learn about eating disorders or like disorder eating, and what was that like?
I actually didn't know there was a thing called eating disorders, and I didn't know I was suffering from it till I watched this documentary on YouTube from Shane Dawson. He had, I think, he'd interviewed this girl who had suffered from anorexia and I think bulimia as well. And when I saw her talk about her experience, was when I made the connect that I was going through something very similar, and that's when I was able to put a name to it, because he was talking about eating disorders and he was talking about his struggle with binge eating and her struggle with anorexia and bulimia and stuff like that. That's when I simultaneously realized there is something called an eating disorder and that I was suffering from it.
So, I mean, today, what makes you want to share about this experience or your experience with an eating disorder?
I think because it's still an ongoing battle, I wouldn't say that I'm completely cured from it. In the sense that I've stopped. So I think I'm not being diagnosed by a professional, but from what research I've done and articles I've read, I think I had bulimia and not anorexia. I think I was heading there, but I started off with binge eating and then I put on a lot of weight, and then to counter that, I think I started with bulimia. I had bulimia, and then the fact that I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know the serious consequences of it, and I just got lucky and found out about it through a documentary, is what scares me even today. So that is why I want to speak up more about it, and I want more people to speak about it, because right now I think I'm going through the other extreme of an eating disorder where I am binge eating again. But I'm at least aware of it. I'm aware of it. I'm able to combat it with articles. I'm able to talk to my sister, who I'm very close to, who thankfully has a better relationship with food. So I'm able to share that experience with someone. So I feel like talking about it might help someone else who has no idea what's happening to them.
Thanks for sharing that. I feel like talking about it is so important, and I'm glad you're doing that. So, yeah, how is your relationship with like body image been? Like, how do you feel like that has been for you?
My relationship with food is very ironic, I feel like, because I'm a chef and I'm always around food and I'm always around good food, and my job is to feed people, and also the technical part of my job is to also taste everything that I have. It's not always the most healthiest, it's not always a salad, it's not always it's fried stuff, it's cheesy stuff. So I feel like it gets complicated because of my job, which is what I think I'm bearing the brunt of it now, because I can always eat. I am always around food, and I am suffering. I think I'm suffering from or entering the whole phase of binge eating, which I'm trying to control. So that's where it becomes hard for me. For the longest time that I can remember, I started binge eating when I was in 12th. I think I'm also a stress eater. Again, I've not been diagnosed by a professional, but when there's a stressful situation, I start eating to like cope with the feeling that I'm having. And that's what I did during my 12th grade before my board exam. And that was my first experience of having an unhealthy relationship with food. And then I put on, I think, 10 to 12 kgs. And then when I started college, everybody gets conscious about how they're looking. And I also did have a few people comment on my weight in college and stuff like that. And that's when I started getting conscious. And then that transcended into the other bad relationship with food, where I just stopped eating. I was starving myself. There was a time where I even read an article about, and mind you, the article was not telling me that this is a bad thing. They were giving me, it was as if it was a solution to lose weight. this article that said that models usually, have food and then they try and puke it out to get that energy, but not put on weight. And it was said as a solution. So at that time when I read the article, I was like, oh, this they're suggesting it to me. It was worded like that, and I was very naive and I was in college. And when I started doing that, I instantly saw that I was losing weight, and that's what I wanted at that point of time. Yeah, so my relationship with food since 12th grade till now has been very, very bad, and I feel like it's an ongoing battle till I can come back, even binge eating for that matter. Yeah.
So you mentioned that, how some articles had like this view of like influencing you towards a difficult relationship with food. So like, what do you think about like mainstream media or, just the whole societal expectation to look a particular way or, like how do you
Yeah.
feel like, how does that fit into the picture in your life?
I mean, I feel really scared and sad to even think about uh, people who are conventionally the target of looking a certain way. Because even though I do suffer from an eating disorder, it's a misconception that thin people or not overweight people they don't suffer from anything that's an eating disorder. It's they don't they don't suffer from body image issues. While that's not true, I am scared to think about people who are overweight and according to societal standards are not good enough physically. So I mean, imagine if the media can get through every possible size and shape. So imagine the influence they have on us. Imagine what they're telling us. I mean, it got so bad in between. Thankfully it's getting better, at least from the content I'm consuming on Instagram and YouTube. It's getting better. People are telling you to have whole foods, and they're telling you to have every category of food, not cut out carbs, not cut out fats. They're telling you, you need to have a balanced meal. Thankfully, I think it's getting better, but in between it got so bad, not just with what you should wear, what you should, how you should look, but also what you should eat. I mean, keto got so famous and so like influential in between. Now to think of it, to each their own. But now to think of it, cutting out a complete food group is also developing a bad relationship with food. You shouldn't be scared of carbs. You shouldn't like overdose on fats. I mean, I'm not a nutritionist, but uh, that sounds like you're having an unhealthy relationship with food, and that sounds familiar to me. So they have a huge influence, and they should be more responsible. Because I read that article in a magazine, in a fashion magazine, when I was, say, like 20 years old, and I thought that that was a good solution. So they should be very responsible in what they share.
Yeah, definitely. I think social media or even just mainstream media has such an impact on how we think and believe things. I'm going to ask you a difficult question, but if you were to like try to explain someone who doesn't have an eating disorder, doesn't know anything about eating disorders, what your eating disorder looks like or what it is, how would you explain it to them?
I would say that I'm constantly thinking about what I'm eating, in a good or a bad way, in the sense that I'm either constantly hungry, I'm not actually hungry, but I'm constantly craving things. And when that happens and I give in to my cravings and I binge eat, then I'm constantly guilty about why I did that. So it's exhausting to have that only that thought all the time. And do not separate an eating disorder from having depression or anxiety. I think that these two are interlinked, and I do think that one or the other influences the other so much more and makes the other worse. I do know that I suffer from anxiety, and I do know that I went through an extremely low phase in college, and I feel like that did trigger something that my eating disorder to a point where it got really bad. If not for the other, maybe I would have been able to, uh, you know, stop at a point. I'm not sure. This is just my experience, but do not separate the two and do not be like, oh, you just need to like have discipline when you eat, because it's not that simple. So for someone who doesn't know what an eating disorder is or isn't able to understand it, it's not as simple as You need to be disciplined with your food. It's a lot more. It's connected to a lot of the mental issues as well. And you're all the time, you a person might look at me and be like, oh, you're like, you look fit, but for me, I look like I'm the most unhealthiest person there ever is. And the irony of that is, I would look at my friend who might just be a couple of kilos more than me, but I would think she's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. So it's internal. It's you would look, I think it's body dysphoria if I'm not wrong, but yeah, you look at yourself and you cannot see truly how you look. Those lines get blurry for you. So it's a lot of other things. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's what you pointed out that there are coexisting conditions as well, like including depression, anxiety. That's a very common experience, um, as well as body dysmorphia. So yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. What do you think was your reason? I mean, I think this is a very important question that we ask ourselves and other people ask us as well. That why did this happen? Why did this eating disorder happen? So, what do you think are like the reasons in general that people have eating disorders, and specifically, like how was it for you? Like, why do you think you developed an eating disorder?
I think it's the most common answer and it's the most obvious answer for me. It was just that I looked fat. I had put on so much weight, and that's equal to bad. And I wanted to lose it, and I wanted to look a certain way, and that's what caused it to become a serious issue. But I feel like the start of it, when I was binge eating and I was in 12th grade, everybody, including me, found it funny, found it cute, found it didn't find it abnormal, right? I was eating an abnormal amount of food, and I was eating it for the wrong reasons, and I was eating it at very odd hours in the night. At that point, my parents, me, my teachers, my friends, none of us found that abnormal. Whereas it is an abnormality from my regular pattern, right? And if that was cut in the bud, I think it wouldn't have gotten so worse. And that, I think, we have to acknowledge that it's because nobody was aware of something like that. Nobody knew that. Yeah, people knew, don't starve yourself, don't diet, don't try and lose weight. That was taboo. But binge eating, even for a 16, 17-year-old girl, they think that's cute, that's funny, that's nice. It's good, eat, you should eat more. But cut it in the bud, and any sort of abnormality should have been addressed, should have been spoken to. A professional should have been spoken to. And I feel like right now in hindsight, that's such a simple answer, but at that point of time, it was normal. Even for me, it was like, yeah, I'll get over it. It's just a phase. I feel like that's what started the journey.
Definitely, I feel like just awareness or just just knowledge that this is something that is difficult for some of us is can be so helpful to someone who's at risk or even just
Yeah.
just has body image concerns. So, um, how easy or difficult was it for you to accept that you had an eating disorder, or to understand or grapple with the whole idea of it being a mental and physical illness?
Yeah. Um, I didn't really have to accept it as if I was getting this epiphany, because whenever I used to throw up after eating, I knew I was doing something that was not normal and that was not good for me, and I knew that it's not something that I would advertise to anybody because I was ashamed of it. So that part of that acceptance happened while I was doing it. I just didn't have a name for it. I didn't know what was it. I didn't know why I was doing that, and I didn't have a term to give it, right? So when I saw the documentary, it just kind of tied up together, and I just I realized that there's a term to it. It's common. It's happening to someone staying in the US. It's not just my problem. So I think that in fact helped me accept it. It in fact gave me answers in a way. And lucky for me, that was enough reason for me to kind of slow down and stop. That's how I stopped, because I knew that this is a condition and this is what it is, and it could lead to serious problems. It could lead to hospitalization. It could lead to so much more. So that scared me enough to stop, and I think I'm lucky because a lot of people don't. It's not easy to stop just knowing what it is. So yeah.
So, what are your thoughts about the idea that anorexia or even like bulimia, binge eating, these eating disorders being a largely Western concept? Like, what do you think about like it in the Indian context? Like, what has been your experience and understanding of it?
It's not. I mean, it's you would how ignorant could you be to think that that it's a Western concept, because it's so common in the Indian society and Indian households for people to comment on your weight. Uh, it's just so common, and why would you think that that doesn't have any effect on people? Like, I don't get it. I mean, mental health as a concept itself is something that people are unable to grasp as soon as they should have. But when it comes to eating, people are like, "Khana hi to hai," like, it's just food. Uh, Patli ho gayi, you've become so thin. I mean, when I put on weight, I had people commenting on my weight. When I lost weight, I had people saying, "Why are you becoming so thin? Why are you dieting? Why you stop dieting?" And every time I put something in my mouth, even when I was eating, when I'd lost weight, people would snarkily say that, "Oh, how come you're eating? You're not dieting or what?" So how can you be so naive and think that those comments don't affect the person? So that's just your denial. You're just in denial, and you're just saying that you have a comment for every single person at every single shape they are and every single size they are. So you need to just wake up and realize that these they have effects and people are dealing with it mentally, and it can you just need to not think that it's I think it's an escape to say depression, eating disorders, all of that are Western concepts. हमारे घर पे नहीं होता है. That's just not. You're in denial. You're running away from the truth, and you just need to wake up.
I love your answer. I feel like that had so much like power and like your frustration with the world, and I share that with you. Yeah. What do you think about like what do you think has influenced your relationship with your body and food? Like what external factors? I know you mentioned like friends, family, and their conversations, as well as media, but is there anything specific that has influenced your own?
Uh,
Because this is not a personal relationship.
realization.
So yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. I personally, at least, so when I look back at my old photos, and I have this, I can relate to those photos based on the emotion and the relationship I had with my body at that time. So whenever I look back at that an old photo, and right now I look back and be like, I was fine. Why did I think I was fat? Or why did I think I looked ugly? Or why did I think I was overweight? Or why did I think I had to lose weight? And that the fact that I say that for every single phase of my life, every single year that goes by, I say that for every single year, irrespective of the fact that I had put on or lost weight. It has nothing to do with that. I look back at that photo and I'm like, I look fine. Why did I think? That has helped me now. While yeah, I still struggle a little bit with binge eating, uh, but now I'm able to at least appreciate my body a little more. I'm able to look at myself in the mirror and say out loud that I look fine, I look nice, which I never did before. I was always unhappy. So that has helped me. The fact that, and this my sister told me that you will say that now that you look ugly, but 2 months down the line you look at the same photo and you'll be like, I look fine. So why not enjoy it in the moment? Why not be like, I look nice, and go out and enjoy yourself no matter what you're wearing and no matter how you look, because you're anyway going to do it when the moment's passed. So that has helped me. Thankfully, my friends, my sister and my parents. My parents honestly don't know the depth of this. They know that this used to happen, but they don't. I didn't want to share too many details with them, but they've been very understanding. They've given me my space, which is what I needed. They were like, "ठीक है, whatever it is, you figure it out. If you need us, we're here." Which again, I'm lucky to have that. But that also helped me. That also helped me figure it out myself. Do my own research. That's just how I deal with all of this. And they allowed me that. They weren't like, "Oh my God, come on, let's rush you to this professional. Oh my God, come on, let's like take you to this." Whoever they thought could help me, they gave me my space, and but they're aware and they check in every now and then, and they know that this is an issue and it's an ongoing issue. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that your sister and your friends and even your family like were a good support system. What do you think that loved ones can do to support someone with an eating disorder? Like, what do you think people can do better or differently to support people who might be at risk or have an eating disorder?
This is a common thing that I read, and I think it's very true. Do not comment on someone if they can't change that in 5 seconds. Don't make a comment on someone's, especially physical appearance, if they can't change that within 5 seconds. Don't do that. It's extremely rude. Why would you do that? If you're concerned about someone's health, I can list down 10,000 other ways to say something. Why would you comment on someone's clothing, weight, and what they're eating at that moment? Don't why would you do that? It's none of your business. You don't know what they're going through. So that's the start. That whether you know that person personally or you're just an acquaintance or just a stranger, do not whisper about their weight, about what they're eating and what they're wearing. They can't change that at that moment. They might not want to change that. You don't know that. So don't say anything. Secondly, if you're a family member, you're a relative, if you're worried about, and some of those relatives come from a good place, they just aren't aware enough of how to put it in words. They should educate themselves. That's not our problem, because now we are going through this whole mental journey. But I understand they come from a good place. Just process it in your head what you're going to say, and then say it. That other person will understand. They will understand where you're coming from. They'll understand your concern, and they will give you an answer if you need it. If you deserve one, they'll give you an answer. But say it in your head. Think if you would like to hear that from someone else. If not, don't say it.
I think that's great advice. I'm going to give it to my parents now. Yeah. So what do you like? You mentioned like doing your own research, like reading about it, and just learning about it more was very helpful. But
Yeah.
what were the ways in which you coped with the eating disorder, and what helped you like towards getting I don't want to say recovery because I feel like I never know when someone is recovered or if I'm recovered. So just this helped you to have a less terrible relationship with food. Like what helped you get there?
uh, the fact that this scared me so much, the fact that I didn't know what I was going through, and such a big thing, uh, that scared me so much. So I'm like, no, I need to read up more on this. And what if I'm going through something else I'm not aware of? So that helped me know more about it, read more about it. I actually told my sister and my friends years later. I didn't tell them immediately, but only once I was able to process it, I was able to read up on it. That's when I told them. So then that also helped me, because mentally I was like, now I'm accountable to someone. If my sister, so I actually told my sister this, that if you see me after a meal behaving fishy, or running up to my room, keep an eye out. Don't barge in, because I will then start hiding it from you. But now I know that someone knows, and they can ask me. So that was the first step. Like, just tell someone, so especially someone who lives with you, so that they can keep an eye out, and they will tiptoe around it. They'll probably ask you in their own way. But I don't know how I had the presence of mind to do that. I think I was getting better. I think I'd stopped doing it after the documentary I'd watched. I'd stopped doing it, and I don't know why, what got into me. I just stopped doing it, and I think that made me feel better, and that made me clear my head a little. And I was like, okay, I'm telling you this. So keep an eye out, at least for the next few months or a year. If I'm acting fishy after a meal, or if I'm not eating well, or if there's something going on, take your time and ask me. So I feel like accountability is very important, and that's with any mental illness, right? Sharing, talking to someone, yes, a therapist for sure, a professional for sure, but even your close friends and family, just let them know how you're doing. Give them a peek into how you're feeling, so that there's some accountability, right? So that is very important, and that helps you. Yeah.
All right. Um, yeah. So just one thing. I think the meeting is going to end in 10 minutes, but if it does end, we can just come back to the same link because it's not a paid plan. Okay. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I hear that you had like a lot of family support and just being able to talk to them. Did you have any other support? Like, did you seek out any other help, like maybe a support group or a therapist or anything? And how was that experience if you did?
I just recently started like talking to therapists, but this is not for my eating disorder. But I also do suffer from anxiety. But I realized that once I get into it, this would come up, and I'm okay with talking about it. But I wanted to combat my anxiety first because it got really bad during COVID. So that's something I've just started. So I know that's another long journey. Apart from that, this is the first time I'm Kamakshi, when she reached out to me, we spoke, I think, for about an hour and a half. She told me her story, I told her my story, and that was the first time I had spoken outside my circle about an eating disorder. I think I was very nervous to speak about it to a stranger. Friends, family will understand. I felt like, but this is the first time I'm speaking about my eating disorder. Yeah, it's the first time.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about like talking right now for the first time?
When I spoke to Kamakshi itself, it was extremely liberating, and that's why I instantly agreed. She was trying to make me feel comfortable, and she's like, "If you're comfortable, we can share your story. If not, that's completely fine." Same way, like when we spoke yesterday, you were being very nice, and you were saying, whatever you want, we can do. But I'm like, no, I felt so liberated speaking about it, and it's helping me. It's helping me heal as well. Yeah, of course, we talk about it. There's more conversation, more people find out that, oh, this is something that happens to someone who looks like me, also someone who looks 10 kgs more, also someone who's much thinner than me. So it has nothing to do with your weight. So it helps someone else also, but it helps me also. So I'm also healing while talking about it. It's like I'm talking to a therapist without paying you guys for it.
No, definitely. I feel like, I mean, storytelling or like sharing our stories is so powerful.
Yeah,
And it can be, a sort of catharsis if that's how you choose to be. And I was just thinking, like you saw a documentary and that was something that really, that was like a changing point for you. And I was just thinking, if someone would view your experience, maybe it would
yeah,
shift things for
exactly.
them as well. So that's, I'm really grateful that, you're doing this. Um, so, like, I think most of us as a society and as a culture, we've been introduced to these ideas of how one, our body should look, what is desirable, what is conventionally attractive
Yeah.
since you were like really young. So, what do you think it really takes to challenge these norms and assumptions? Like, how do we as a generation or just like as a community challenge each other constantly about these, norms that we build for ourselves?
I think I'll be like, giving you a wrong picture if I say that those kind of notions are still not stuck in my head, because no, I'm not going to be happy looking at my weighing scale and be like, I put on 2 kgs. I'm going to be sad about it. Why? Why do I have to be sad about it? Might be healthy for my body to put on a couple of kilos. So that notion of putting on weight is still scary, and it's thanks to the society, thanks to people being like, if you're bigger, you're gonna look bad. That's still there, and I'm trying so hard to kind of like fight that, but it comes and goes. It's a personal journey. I think what helps is in your inner circle, when you catch a friend or a colleague or a peer, being like either demeaning themselves with the way they look or someone else, call it out. Say, hey, that's not nice. Don't do that to yourself. Don't say that. I think you're beautiful. Don't say that to yourself. Call it out immediately, because that leads to maybe a 5-minute conversation, but it still leads to conversation. Maybe that person doesn't say it again in front of you, but that person is saying that much less of that negative comment, right? So call it out immediately in your inner circle. If you're not too big on social media and you don't want to call out random people on social media, don't do that. But in your circle, please like call out people who are being mean to themselves and to someone else. Say it politely, but say it, because that will lead to conversation for sure.
Yeah, I think that has been so helpful to hear from you. Do you have like any last thoughts, anything that you still have left to say? We would like to hear that.
I just hope, like, because food is fuel, and food can be such a enjoyable experience. I don't know why this exists, but it does. It's a serious problem. But if we can all just look at food the way it's supposed to be, we can we can really enjoy it. And this is coming from the chef side of me, because I'm like, food is amazing. You guys should buy it. I'm selling food all the time. So I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird headspace to be in, but you are beautiful and you should eat whatever you want. Of course, have a healthy relationship with food. Nobody should tell you how you should look and what you should eat. You're on your own path, and you'll figure it out. You will figure it out if you're able to talk about it. That's half the battle won. Yeah.